So it's about the time of year when education students are heading back into practicum placements. So I'm going to share one of the first pieces of feedback that I give to education students as I observe their teaching in schools. It comes down to one idea, and I'll unpack it for you, but here's the idea. Embed the mode of response in your question. So what does that mean? Instead of asking, what do you folks think? Instead say, who can raise their hand and tell me what you think? Or turn to your elbow partner and tell your partner what you think. Yeah, it's that simple. And it's an important point, and it's often missed because we don't often get practice talking to a collective. Talking to a collective requires more formal turn-taking than talking with an individual, or maybe a few people. When you're talking to one person, or even a few people, it's okay to ask them these sort of check-in questions like, you know what I mean? Or can you believe it? We don't really want to know if our listener knows what we mean. We assume they do. We just use those questions to see if our listener is actually engaged. I often see education students talking to a class as if they were talking to a friend. The problem with that is that when you ask a classroom a question like, you know what I mean? You are eliciting a response. You are giving the reins of the discussion to the listener. You just ask the class to tell you something. And that's normally quite a good thing. A lot of effective teaching requires a back and forth exchange of ideas. But you've elicited a response without telling them how to respond. So what happens? Well, some students will raise their hand and tell you, yeah, I know what you mean, or they'll want to tell you a similar story or make a connection. And some students will just turn to each other and answer your question. So embedding the mode of response in your questions will help you out in two ways. One, it'll be a regular reminder of how you want them to respond. Likely you want hands up, but you might also want them just to say it out loud together or tell an elbow partner. But telling them how to respond will make your classroom more predictable and help them to be successful. And two, by forcing yourself to consider how you want them to respond, you'll have an extra split second to decide if you actually need a response in that moment. Sometimes we don't need a response. So here's the big idea. By reducing your use of non-functional questions, you can streamline your discussions and ask purposeful questions with clear instructions on how they can respond to you. There you go. I hope that helps.